Welcome to the FTN Tech Talk series. It's a short, powerful video sessions where we tackle real-world technology and business challenges facing today's leaders. I'm Darren Coleman, and I'm joined with John Daly from the Fractional Talent Network. At FTN, we're a community of senior technical and business experts who collaborate to deliver innovative, practical solutions through trusted, vetted partners, either through advisory and project based services. We help organizations modernize, scale, and unlock power of data strategy enablement, profitability, and growth. Today's Tech Talk is one you won't want to miss. How do we keep what has been built accurate? And John and I are going to walk through those topics. So let me kick it off and get started. And welcome to our Data Strategy Enablement Series. I'll just throw a tickler out there that there's going to be more than one of these on data strategy and enablement. But when we think about what's going on in our ecosystem today, roughly 80% of every analytics project is spent time fixing data that should have been right for the first time. This leads to wasted efforts and insights, frustrates teams, erodes trust, and more importantly, has customer impacts. As you can see across the different industries, every industry is impacted by this. And the fact that if you look at healthcare, 38% of all global data is now healthcare, and 80% of organizations report data quality issues. Introduce all sorts of risks that could be associated to it, of duplicated records or even regulatory considerations. But it opens up a lot of work and a lot of costs for organizations as they work through those data challenges. Financial services aren't immune from it as well, that 70% of them actually look at that they're citing that they have entity resolution at the top data management sources. And in addition, if you look at retail and consumer tech, 60 to 80%. And this leads to poor fragmented marketing, but also erodes confidence in the customer and the fact that they can start to not shop at those stores because of it. But enterprise CRM, which is supposed to be the nucleus and the hub of all customer data, 91%, and they lead the pack where they say that it's incomplete. Is it thorough or complete? And this impacts every company in regards to sales pipeline errors, account misalignment, or even misstating your revenue of how things are happening and what is happening with your revenue guidance and such forth. So today we're going to talk about how pragmatic governance can protect your accuracy without actually slowing down delivery, meaning governance can be your friend. And by the end, we're going to give you concrete practices that you can walk out from this tech talk and apply immediately. But more importantly, use a clear roadmap for scaling them. So let's talk about why best practices matter for a minute. Because we all can't have a discussion today without having AI and machine learning a part of that discussion, which makes bad data exponentially costly. Because what AI and machine learning can do is that they can magnify errors in a hurry. I have worked, and you've probably worked on other projects where, I was leading a project once. It was a $70 million investment and to really transform our analytical capability. 2 months into that project, I realized that it really wasn't a analytical problem statement that was our challenge. It was actually a data problem, and the leadership did not want to address it and wanted to proceed with actually building better analytic capabilities. 18 months later, we had the most fantastic analytical engine that was generating more refined garbage. At that point, the leadership actually agreed, and we kicked off a data readiness effort, which we had identified 16 months earlier. But if you think about the state of where we are, technology is a rocket ship, no question about it. Data is the fuel. And if you pump bad data into a rocket ship, it's not going to fly. Or in my analogy, we just made more refined garbage out of the bad data. But this is how AI and machine learning can amplify the challenges that you might be facing with data. The other area that also gives people a pause is around the regulatory scrutiny. Acronym soup. I think that we're looking at an alphabet soup, but GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA, as well as privacy acts. You know, the regulatory agencies are tightening the screws around the compliance and utilization of such data, as well as meeting the regulatory standards. No question about it. And that can lead to fines, audits, brand damage from sloppy data or sloppy data practices. But these regulatory bodies has also created a perceived barrier. We've created this self-inflicted. It's got to do with HIPAA, or it's got to do with this, it's got to do with that. And it's been a self-inflicted barrier that has paused or slowed down innovation. I actually think that we need to boldly go through this barrier. A lot of the technologies that are available today are equipped to handle these types of challenges. And they also come with audible practices already built in. And so if you think about that you can boldly go through and be compliant as long as you are diligent in your practices of how you establish the way of working. So a well-executed governance, which John's going to get to in a minute around those best practices, can actually accelerate rather than slow down innovation. Yes, I have heard that from many data governance officers along my journey, but I actually agree with them. And the fact that he or she, it's saying that governance can be that transformational engine is correct. That clean, trusted data lets teams ship models faster, as well as pivot with confidence because they know the data is accurate and they can lean in on it. But let's actually have John, if you don't mind, talk a little bit more about those best practices that companies should be looking at.
Sure. Well, Darren's covered what goes wrong across industries, right? And we all suffer from it. And best practices can really help to get you a data system that people can use and that is useful in the organization and is adopted into business workflows. So we've identified 5 high impact best practices that we wanted to talk through. So best practice number 1 is executive sponsorship. Get sponsorship commitments from business domain executives. These are the leaders whose teams are generating the data we're storing, and identify key process indicators that are meaningful to them and make sure that our system can spit those indicators out. For the project to succeed, the business has to see value in the data and in the visualizations we're producing, and it should become a central part, or at least be able to become a central part of their workflow. So number 1 is executive sponsorship. Best practice number 2 is domain-based stewardship. Seek out stewards in each function and adopt a data products mindset. Business stewards will be the owners of the process for each different function in the business. They need to be able to set time aside for assuring dashboards tie out to other information sources that the organization uses. We should also provide basic tech training for the stewards, make sure they understand their role and how critical they are to success. Stewards are responsible for data integrity and privacy. Do totals match? Create a gate that requires stewards to approve dashboards before they are periodically released or updated. Advanced visuals might allow capturing comments from the stewards to increase the collaboration value of the visuals to users. Stewards can approve access requests, ensure that security principles like least privilege security are implemented for the data in their business area. Stewards can define business requirements for data lifecycle strategies, assuring information is retained as required, and just as important, is deleted or expired from databases and dashboards as mandated. And stewards also directly provide insights into how data is used, identifying for the technical team and defining more complex analysis needs, including finding the right individuals in the organization to help them if they need assistance in helping the technical teams. Create dashboards that automate tedious work, such as calculating complex metrics. When we save staff time, it will be much more likely that our data and dashboard projects will succeed. All right, best practice number 3 is metadata and quality controls. There are a number of ways to implement data quality controls. Tie-out controls assure that at various levels, database totals are consistent with source systems. Domain controls assure that facts like customer number in a sales table actually exists in the customer master table. Analytical and comparison procedures, also known as validation rules, compare data to baseline or prior expectations. It's of paramount importance to define and execute data quality controls, because without good controls, the business won't trust the data. And if they don't trust the data, they will not use your systems. Now, in addition to the data, controls also apply to data pipelines, or how the data gets from point A to point B. So apply anomaly and failure detection inside data flows and pipelines, and make sure that problems are communicated proactively. If data fails to move across the system and your dashboards don't populate properly, make sure that analysts know that quickly, and don't waste time researching problems that are really infrastructure failures. So best practice number 4 is collaboration first workflows. So proactively share success and failure events, make system status transparent and obvious. When you integrate governance and task management, use tools like Slack or Jira, ticketing and tracking systems that the business already uses. Don't create specialized tracking just for the analytical dashboards. And in one really egregious case, the tracking for the status of the dashboard was built into the application itself, so that when the application went down, the ability to see the status of the application went down. So it would be almost comical if it wasn't, sad in a major sense. Another big thing about collaboration is to allow business users to share comments, and also give them the ability to build shareable visualizations. That will go a long way to insert data and dashboards into core business processes and eliminate or reduce the shadow data that exists all too often in spreadsheets across the organization that typically belong to one and only one individual and are not shared processes. And the last best practice, number 5, before I'll hand it back to Darren to discuss roadmap, continuous measurement and feedback loops. So publish your accuracy scores, publish your defects, treat data like a product, and have service level objectives that the people who look at your visualizations are aware of and can track. Engage system users and even the non-users to provide feedback on, for the user's performance. For the non-users, what are the feature gaps? Tell us what we're not doing that you'd like us to do that would get you to use the system. Then I'll hand it over back to Darren.
Yeah, thank you, John. Talking about all the different practices, now we need to come up with a plan, that roadmap, because nothing happens in an organization without a plan. But the reality is the fact that you do need to consider the overall maturity of your organization, maturity of your people, as well as the maturity of your processes. And that Rome wasn't built in a day, and that you will have to move through a stepwise evolution from a chaotic, everything in Excel spreadsheets and managed through Excel spreadsheets might be inconsistent, but guided through a path of maturity evolution. And I think many of you might know of this, but if you think of level 1, which is ad hoc, There's no formal processes or standard in place. But the fact is that you recognize it, and it allows you to start moving toward level 2, where you can start getting repeatable. Basic processes are starting to exist. You're getting repeatable with similar outcomes. And that sets the stage for you to move on to level 3, with being defined. Processes are written, documented, standardized, and integrated across teams so that you have each team working from the same set of instructions, which allows that integrity to start building into your data products. And then finally, getting to the point that you can be level 4, optimized. Processes are continuously monitored and improved based on feedback from the KPIs, along with AI and automation that is taking place in your organization. But being able to illustrate each one of those milestones for your organization is very important. But more, in addition to that, you need to know where you are, in the fact that work with your partners. If you're part of the data team or technology team, work with the business team. If you're part of the business team, partner with your technology team, because this is an aligned agenda and you can't boil the ocean. It's a stepwise approach of how you get there. But just as John was talking about it earlier with the KPIs, you need to celebrate your success metrics. I think about this every time that I come into my neighborhood during the United Way drive, and they have this thermometer that keeps on filling up as donations are coming in. I actually told a CEO of one of my previous companies that I worked for that I wanted a screen at the entrance of the employee entrance to the organization that said, here was our data quality, or more importantly, a metric that showed how many data quality errors that an employee caused, so that they actually had skin in the game, because nothing gets into a system unless it's typed in. Yes, we do a lot of loads, but eventually somewhere somebody typed. But you need to publish those success metrics, but also to establish quick wins. You need to build momentum, set expectation with your internal stakeholders and customers when they can expect it, and not that shouldn't be 18 months away. Think about the fact of what can you do in the next quarter, and how does that actually enable the business to be able to say that they have 40% fewer rework hours in the last 6 months, or faster time to insight after pipeline validations. Have these be measurable so that you can celebrate that, but also set expectation with your customer. And that each of these metrics should tie back to a revenue, risk, or speed measurement, so that there's harmony in how the business is operating, how your data governance is operating, and how the technology is enabling those things. But with that said, John, I think you might want to talk a little bit about our service a bit.
Yeah, so it's starting the wrap up to talk about the services that our fractional talent can provide to you. Well, we'd like to share, I guess, the services and kind of the outcomes that you could expect if you engage us. So we'll help with data architecture and management, really providing templates by data privacy class. This is customized. What we provide would be customized to you. The information would be templates, and we would help you with understanding them. We can help broadly with data governance strategies. We can assess your organization's data maturity and capabilities and make recommendations and roadmaps to improve it to meet your quality goals. We can help with analytics and dashboard design to enable data-driven decisions. So in that service, we leverage the foundation which has already been built to deliver intelligence across the organization and make it useful, bring it to life for the business users. We can do audits and recommendations. We'll look at your operational framework execution versus your stated objectives and best practices, and we will, audit, review, and feedback recommendations based on our findings. And the last service is really experienced industry leadership and subject matter expertise for your project. So basically, we'll plug into whatever you're doing. We can provide leadership or technical execution for work you already have in process. And that's the services we provide. So in wrapping it up, I'll do a quick call to action. The final thing we'd like to mention is that we are working on a self-assessment survey that can be used to highlight potential gaps in actions. To get a copy of the self-assessment survey or learn more about what fractional talent can do for you, you can contact Kate Lewis, our Chief Operating Officer, at kate@fractionaltalent.io, and we will be publishing this, and we'll have that address where it'll be easy to get to. So Darren, thank you for the information. It was great, super helpful.